Welcome to another edition of Living with Purpose. Today I have an amazing individual, Mahnaz Javid, who is the founder of Mola Foundation. She is a corporate person. She worked for major companies, Microsoft and Avanade, where she led the HR work. She's also a PhD, a doctorate in education from Seattle University, but she spent a significant amount of her time and life focused on educating kids from the underserved community, particularly girls. And she has been working for decades now doing this work. And at the last that I've heard, they have impacted over 5.6 million girls. I mean, kids that have gone through their program in 20 plus countries all over the world. So please join me in welcoming Mahnaz to Living with Purpose. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Aftan. Thank you. Wonderful to be on this call with you. And thank you for all the incredible work that you're doing in bringing everyone together, creating community, and really advancing this amazing topic of living your purpose. Nothing more important than that.
So talk about your journey. Where did you grow up, your life with your family? And then we kind of have a conversation going forward.
Well, I was born and raised in a very small town, southern part of Iran, in the oil country. My father was a physician in the company, and I spent my first 12 years of lives there. My father and my mother, they're incredible charitable people. After I'm sure you've come from the same kind of family and you understand, but you sort of grow up with this service as a way of life. He was a physician and truly committed himself to the care and to healing of those without access to healthcare. And my mother was an incredible companion to him. So whoever came to our door, she fed them and clothed them, and he made sure that they went away with the meds that they needed. And I never forget it. I think one of the formative experiences in my life was we were sitting around a table eating lunch, and I remember that my mother had prepared a wonderful chicken dish, and this is years and years ago in a country where access to meat was not so easy. And somebody rang the door, and my father went to the door, came back, and practically picked up the food off the table and took it and gave it to whoever it was at the door. I came back and said, "These people are not sick. They lack protein. That is what they need." So I never forgot that experience. It was really that, and his everyday work and his everyday care for anyone that came to our door, but particularly in his everyday practice, that made really service a part of his life, my mother's life, our family's life, and that's how we grew up. I think that we were comfortable. We lived a comfortable life, rather comfortable life, nothing so fancy, but comfortable life. But they made certain that myself and the rest of my siblings were exposed to the realities of life that were around us, people who had and then people who didn't, and how we lived to make sure that we did our bit and contributed whatever we could to the overall well-being of the community around us. So that's how I grew up. Both my parents were very incredibly keen on education, as very important to them that all of their children would receive the best education there was. My mother particularly was keen on all the three daughters to stand on their own feet and become educated, stand on their own feet, and lead an independent life. And in Iran at that time, opportunities were very few for girls particularly, and for those from a minority religion specifically. So my father started sending at great sacrifice to them after. And this is another formative experience of my life. They truly sacrificed everything they did to make sure that their children had the best and had the opportunity to become the best they could be, So my parents started sending their children one at a time. By the time they were 12, 13, 14, out of the country to the U.S. And because, as my father used to say, in the US, you have a choice and you can lead the life of your own choosing. Also, the freedom of conscience was incredibly important too. So I was at a very young age. After my first year of high school, I was sent to the US, lived with a family upstate New York, finished high school there, finished very quickly actually, and kept on going from there.
Talk a little bit about that experience, right? You're coming into a new country with relatives away from your family. Upstate New York is not southern Iran. It's and so talk a little bit about that, and then
Yeah.
graduated from there. How did you land up in Seattle?
Yes. I landed in Phelps, New York, which is a small town of 5,000 upstate New York, in a quintessential American town. Lived in a little Victorian home with a wonderful family. To this day, I still call him my American father. And my dad, my American dad, was a professor at Cornell University, and my American mother was a incredibly kind homemaker, but incredibly kind. And I had a family. So I came to this country without a word of English, honestly. I thought that I knew English, but I really didn't. And for the first 3 months, it was absolutely psychological and emotional isolation. I mean, I was excited. It was a new town, new place, very kind people. But, at that time, there's not internet and not cell phones, and the only way of communication with my parents were through just letter writing. And we had this little post office in town, and they had never seen anyone come from Iran. So anytime a letter came from that country, they would call. They'd call and say, "Man, yeah, we call a letter." And I would run from our home to the post office a couple of blocks away, and I would pick up my mail. So I think that it was an incredible emotional adjustment. But my American family is very kind and helped me through the first 3 months of getting used to things. I picked up the language pretty quickly, and school was very supportive as well. My American mother used to sit down. I had a dictionary, and she would sit down next to me, and she would read word by word, and I would find the words in the Persian English dictionary to understand what it was he was saying. Good on all the topics except American history and literature. So, anyways, I actually completed my high school in 1 year because I had enough credit from my sort of English-oriented education in Iran that I was able to meet all the requirements. So once I passed the English literature and American history, I graduated. I think that it's very important for me to be with my family at that time. My brother was here by then, my sister was here, so we got together. And how did I end up in Washington? And that's a very long story, and we interrupted by a couple of things. One is that as soon as, of course, after graduation from high school, I went to university. Is that it all? It just questions around who am I? What am I doing? What's my purpose? What's my meaning? And the life that I had created for myself in the US at that time, independent, working, graduated from high school, in university, and all of that. And it's just like, okay, starting living the American dream. But I just was not satisfied. I just thought, okay, what is next? And there was a youth volunteer program in Israel, and they needed someone who could speak both English and Persian. So I said, okay, I think that I'm just going to go and give a couple of years. Very, very excited about the possibility of doing something outside this everyday thing. So I interrupted the school. I went to Haifa, Israel for 2 years and served as a volunteer, youth Peace Corps kind of thing. And that really changed my life because I saw people from all over the world coming with this singular purpose, creating a more equitable communities for everyone and creating being together and creating service as a way of life. And being in that environment for 2 years truly shaped my next step from then to now.
So what year was this when you went to Israel?
Israel is 77 through 79. So
Wow.
very, very early. I left that experience, came back to the US. I promised my parents to finish my education. So continued on with my master's and then met my husband in the middle, and wonderful, wonderful person, married. And that is how I ended up in the West Coast. He was working here. And then while I had my children, I also finished my doctorate in education at Seattle U. And that was also another formative experience for me as well.
So how did you kind of come into the tech world instead of anything else?
One of my incredible teachers at the University of Washington, and as a part of my thesis, as I was getting my master's, introduced me to this high school for at-risk students in Mukilteo, as a way of studying how technology was actually changing the way that people were. So I went and visited, and I felt, okay, I saw the classroom. It's one of the first online classrooms ever in the country at that time. This is 1997. And it just absolutely started opening my eyes into the possibilities. And at that time, of course, we had Microsoft here. You had Bill Gates saying one computer in every desk. And that thesis experience and having studied and creating a 2-year case study of the impact of technology and learning in that cyber school, that is how I got engaged. And I wrote my dissertation on technology and learning,
Right.
and at that time it was called like, human software interface, user experience, and a skill to be able to make technology accessible to everyday person in a way that is useful to that. I just thought that was the future. I mean, how can you not see that? So when I went to Seattle U and finished and started to looking at my dissertation, then that became the focus area, and that's how it started. I started without knowing, and I started from learning about the theory and how it was practiced and how it was not only impacting the learner and the students, but also everyone around them, their family, their friends, their community. And I just saw and began to see this ripple effect of having the access to technology and the impact on learning and living. And then I was recruited. I taught at the University of Washington computer systems at that time for a while as I was finishing up my dissertation. And that's how I was recruited to go and start as an instructional designer at Microsoft training. So that's how it started.
So here you are in this tech environment. Obviously, Microsoft is very prominent with its employee giving campaign and encouraging people to kind of go out and become part of the community. Did that have any influence on you before you started the Moda Foundation, or that was just completely separate?
Well, it was sort of concurrent. I think that Moda Foundation was founded in April of 1999. I joined Microsoft 2000. So it was not because of it, but it truly helped it grow and develop as I started working at Microsoft because of the culture that Bill was cultivating within the company. Giving and participating in the community being a very important part of it. But my heart and how Mona was founded is very much grounded in my family background and how I was raised. I saw all the opportunities and all the doors that opened to me because of the education that I received. I came from a country and I'd seen what it means, and I'd experienced in very close people to me around me what hunger felt like, looked like. And my parents sort of ingrained on me the quality of life that you have and get when you are involved in something bigger than yourself,
Right.
that service. And that's how Mona was founded as a way for me to give back what I had been given by my parents. And it started very small, after that, it wasn't like I had this huge, big vision that this is going to be a huge, big organization or anything. I just saw the need through an organization in Haiti and another organization in Panama, and started supporting the education of a couple of kids, But I also had organizational background, and I knew that education is not at one time the check, it takes time. So I was determined that whatever I was doing, that it was going to be something that would last, and so hence forming this nonprofit in 1999.
So talk a little bit about that journey, right? So here is Mona, 1999 to now, that's 26 years. And you are now in multiple countries. So just talk a little bit about that journey and the impact you had. I mean, I've followed your work and the work that you've been doing, and it has just been extraordinary. And I was just listening to your colleague the other day at the Global Washington
Yeah.
conference, and just kind of understanding the approach that you take is excellent. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, as I said, after it really truly started as a individual initiative to just give back and provide access to education to 1, 2, 3, 4 students, I think from the very beginning, however, there were a couple of principles that guided my every step. One is that I certainly knew that I could sit in the US and start thinking about what could I do to improve life in Haiti. There people, the local community is the one most in touch with what is going on in their own countries, in their own localities, understand and diagnose their problems and find the solutions to those problems. So working through grassroots organizations was a no-brainer to me from the very beginning. It wasn't theory, it was what I had seen. I feel like all of us, regardless of geography and economic standing, have the capacity and have the right also and the responsibility to lead, to develop ourselves, and then to contribute to the betterment of our communities. And I truly believe in that because I had seen people and kids without shoes that outshone everybody else. So I think that living or operating and doing the work through grassroots organizations was one principle. The other one was that I also believe that education is at the core of everything, regardless of what you want to combat, whether it is health, whether it's environment, whether it's poverty, whether conflict resolutions, etc. Education is at the core of it. Without education, there's no hope for progress. And then, of course, without educated women, you don't have educated the next generation, So education of girls, myself being a recipient of that, was incredibly important. The idea of working through the grassroots, focus on the root causes of eradicating poverty, and of course, this whole idea of service as a way of life. That the purpose of education fundamentally is to be of social good. So yes, educate ourselves and others to be the best they can be academically. Yes, the arts, you provide them with the arts and all the humanities to also self-express in beauty. But there is also, it's encoded in our DNA that we look for some sort of meaning in our lives. And that sort of meaning you can't find except service towards others. To me, that was also the no-brainer. So that's how it started. It started very small. I was wise enough for our first board composition to recruit a couple of my friends who had extensive experience in global development, had worked for years and years in many different countries. So we had the theory and we had the intention, but also we had the field experience. And I think that was a vital contribution to Mona's beginning and growth. And over time, as we learned, we go from one country and to another. They would receive recommendations to support others in other communities. And we had no money. I mean, after we started with $5,000, our initial budget. So it wasn't like we had lots of resources or that we were very rich or anything, But I truly believe that all of us want to make a difference, and all of us are inspired to give a helping hand. And that has never failed. And whatever we have needed in the past many, many years, we've always had people who step forward to help. And that's how we've grown over time.
So this is a fascinating, there are a couple of things I just want to kind of share with our audience, right? Mona today has this amazing reach. but you started out very small.
Yes,
So the basic message is start,
exactly.
right? The reach happens over a period of time.
Yes.
And I think the second most important thing, which your colleague actually mentioned at the conference, which I thought was just very profound, which is the principle that you tried to highlight. But I just wanted to kind of reframe it for our listeners is don't set your table and expect the community to come to you.
Exactly.
Go to the table that the community has set
Yes.
and help them out there.
Yes. 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 And I think that that's an example that we continue to use here. This is not our table. That's their table.
Yeah.
So if we are going to serve community, any one person, we have to go to their table. We have to learn, and in a humble posture of learning, learn who they are, what they do, what they need, and then trust them that they know better than us and help and support their taking a step forward. And so taking the self out of this and help and trusting the local community to lead their own development, that is absolutely the core principle that's at the core of how we operate, but also and the most significant reason why we are able to scale efficiently and effectively. I mean, our budget is about 3 million, 3.5 million a year. And 2024, we supported 1.4 million students online and in classroom. Well, how do we do that with this net budget? How do you do 3.5 million to 1.4? How do you do that? Well, we can't do it unless except through this model of working through grassroots organizations. So instead of building a huge, big organization here in the US and trying to remotely organize and support, to really work through a local organization and trusting that they know what their problem is, how to solve it, and support their intentions. That is at the core of how Mona has operated, how it has grown, and how it is now scaling.
You know, I know we're coming to a close of our time, but I just want to kind of reiterate this, that it is very important that as you work with communities to understand who they are first and work from that. So as we come to our close, talk a little bit about the importance of purpose and give us your one golden nugget.
Well, I think I truly believe that the idea of service and giving back, contributing to the betterment of our community, that it's encoded in our DNA. It defines who we are. It defines our reality. So to me, the greatest gift that one can give to oneself is to take this step in service to others, and then through that realize the best you can be. And my golden nugget that I have learned all of these years is take the first step and do it as though you're the only person in the world that is doing it. No expectation for others to come and help you and hold your hand and help you through it, but just do it for your own sake in service to something greater. And through it, then you will find meaning and purpose, and you will come closer to whoever you call your divine. Find your reality growing and developing to the best that it can be.
This is such a great way to end on start. Start somewhere, focus on what you can achieve, not what others can. And if you do that, you can take great strides. For those that are interested in learning more about the work that Mahnaz and the Mona Foundation are doing, please visit their website. Again, purpose is a renewable source of energy that continues to drive humanity forward. Find your purpose. It is not about who you become, who you want to be, but it is about who you want to serve. Mahnaz has lived her life in service. Thank you all very much. Mahnaz, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Azak, for having me. It's been a wonderful conversation.